Jacksonville drivers spend 20.8 million hours a year delayed in traffic, burning about 14 million more gallons of gas than needed. Rail makes more efficient use of space. A double-tracked railway can carry up to 10 times the number of people per hour than a two-lane road. You are 9 times more likely to be killed traveling by private car and 2.5 times more likely by air. Traveling by rail is on average 3 to 10 times less CO2 intensive compared to road or air transport. Electric railways can achieve zero CO2 emissions if the electricity produced is sourced from renewable energy sources. In 2000, the average downtown vacancy rate for cities without rail was 12.8%, but 8% for all cities with rail transit. Across America, properties that are within a short walk to a train stop are selling for 20 to 25% more than comparable properties further away. Highway expansion would be nearly 4 times as expensive, and adding dedicated busways would cost nearly 6 times more than commuter rail per passenger trip. If rail is better for the environment, consumes less land, is safer for travel, spurs economic development, and is more cost-effective than roads and bus rapid transit, then shouldn't it become our top transit priority? One of the biggest arguments made against mass transit year after year is that Jacksonville isn't dense enough to support rapid transit options, such as light or commuter rail. And yet, city after city in America, some smaller and with lesser population density than Jacksonville, discard that 1950s thinking in favor of building or enhancing mass transit options, while Jacksonville and its suburbs sit stuck in traffic and the environment chokes on gas exhaust. It's not always about density. It's about the institutions and connecting them and the transportation options in that area. Some still believe that traffic congestion in Jacksonville does not call for rail-based transit alternatives. However, according to a recent Texas Transportation Institute report, Jacksonville drivers spent 39 hours stuck in traffic, a bit above the national average of 38 hours a year. Also, Clay County's 33.4-minute commute tops the national average by more than 8 minutes and is about 2 minutes longer than Florida's second-place county, Osceola, south of Orlando. Rapid transit is about a lot more than moving people from point A to point B. It's also about creating vibrant communities and giving residents viable alternative transit choices. We need to not only think about what do we want today, but what we want our communities to resemble decades from now. Do we want to continue to sprawl out into the farmlands, or do we want to change what we're doing? Cleve Warren, chairman of the Jacksonville Transportation Authority Board, said expanded commuter rail service will probably be the best case scenario for improving public transportation in the future. Knowing the benefits of rail, the importance of protecting our natural environment, limited highway funding available, and rising gas prices, making rail as a viable mass transit alternative in the First Coast should become top transit priority. With this in mind, instead of studying the issue, we need to think outside the box and use our assets to immediately begin to make rail-based mass transit a reality in Jacksonville. To this date, Jacksonville has focused only on mass transit plans that are contingent on receiving funding from the Federal Transit Administration. While FTA funding can be an asset, it should not be the determining factor on what's best for the future of our community. In Houston, local officials used the hosting of the 2004 Super Bowl as momentum to move forward on a locally funded $324 million starter 7.5-mile, 16-station light rail line between downtown Houston and Reliant Park, despite opposition from the federal and funding state levels. Today, the small line averages 40,000 daily riders, and the city is reaping the benefits of their investment and has announced plans for more rail expansion. In Birmingham, Alabama, all it took was a new mayor to come into office with a platform of overhauling the city's transportation system to get things rolling. Less than a year later, the city is beginning to move forward with a $33 million, 2.2-mile streetcar line that will be funded by local business license fees. Houston and Birmingham represent a growing list of our peer cities that have found creative ways to implement starter rail systems in record time with strong civic leadership. Today, we have the opportunity to follow suit by learning and applying the strategies implemented by several of these communities. Moving forward with mass transit improvements should not happen without a true integrated master plan already in place. To successfully get a plan off the ground, it's important to have an overall vision in mind, know what it costs, start small, and work within our means before going on a crusade to raise taxes. It's no secret that Jacksonville has set aside $100 million from the Better Jacksonville Plan for purchase of mass transit right-of-way. It's also no secret that JTA is willing to spend a portion of this money on BRT sites that may not ultimately be needed, depending on the results of ongoing commuter rail and streetcar studies. This valuable monetary asset should not be used for anything until an overall mass transit plan for Jacksonville, with rail as a centerpiece, is completed and priced out. If approved next year, the Orlando Commuter Rail Plan will result in a significant portion of existing CSX freight traffic out of Jacksonville by 2010, thus creating additional track capacity for commuter rail-based options between downtown and Clay County, which limits the need of taking private property and demolishing homes and businesses to build BRT throughout this corridor. The City of Jacksonville already owns 5 miles of rail right-of-way between downtown and Gateway Mall. While utilizing the S-Line for transit, it can also become a solution to the port's logistics problem by serving as a direct link between JAXPORT's Talleyrand Terminal and Florida East Coast Railroad. To handle additional growth at the port terminals, CSX recently announced a $40 million plan to construct a new rail line that will serve the port and bypass inner-city Jacksonville. By sending the majority of port rail traffic north of Jacksonville, this frees up rail capacity throughout the north side. This can potentially give Jacksonville the opportunity to create a starter rail line that can run as far south as Clay County through downtown, where riders can transfer to the Skyway or continue north to Jacksonville International Airport. In June of 2008, the United States House passed a bill that will give $15 billion to Amtrak over the next 5 years to improve their service and provide matching grants to help states set up or expand rail service. Amtrak has always had their eye on improving service in Florida, including a new line between Jacksonville and Miami. Depending on scheduling and additional stops in the First Coast, Amtrak can provide us the opportunity to create strong rail-based commuter connections between downtown Jacksonville and destinations like St. Augustine and Orange Park. By creating a transit master plan, correctly spending the Better Jacksonville Plan funds, using the city-owned S-Line right-of-way, taking advantage of the Orlando Commuter Rail deal and the CSX JAXPORT relocation plan, as well as additional Amtrak funding, Jacksonville can join the list of cities that are rapidly moving forward with transit projects regardless of federal funding requirements.